Have you ever felt that flicker of doubt in your faith and immediately wondered, does this make me a bad Christian? What if I told you that for centuries we've been fed a lie? We've been taught that faith is the absence of struggle, but that's not just wrong. It's not even what Jesus showed us. His raw, agonizing wrestle in the Garden of Gethsemane reveals that true faith isn't about having zero questions or zero fear. It's about what you do when you're completely overwhelmed by them. Now, especially for guys, there's this huge pressure to have an unshakable, rock-solid faith. We're told to be spiritual leaders, the pillars of strength for our families and communities. So, when struggle creeps in, and trust me, it does for everyone, it usually brings a heavy dose of guilt and shame along with it. We start asking ourselves, is my faith even real? Am I a failure? We hide these questions in the dark, scared that speaking them out loud would make us less of a man, less of a believer. I remember a night when the weight hit me so hard I couldn't even pray out loud. I just sat there in silence, feeling like I was failing God. That conflict can be incredibly isolating. You see, it tricks you into thinking you're the only one wrestling with the uncertainty while everyone else has it all figured out. But this is a silent battle you were never meant to fight alone. And the proof for that comes from Jesus himself in one of the most unguarded moments ever recorded. Right after the Last Supper, Jesus takes his inner circle, Peter, James, and John, to a garden called Gethsemane. He looks at them and says, "My soul is overwhelmed with sorrow to the point of death. Stay here and keep watch with me." He walks a little farther, falls on his face, and prays something that should shatter our image of a completely stoic Savior. He cries out, "My Father, if it is possible, may this cup be taken from me." Just let that sink in for just a second. This isn't some calm, polite request. It's a cry of pure agony. That cup he's talking about is the unimaginable horror waiting for him, the physical torture, carrying the weight of all human sin, and worst of all, being separated from his Father. He's in such distress that Luke's gospel says his sweat became like drops of blood falling on the ground. He is fully God, yes, but in this moment, he is also fully and painfully human, feeling a level of dread we can't even begin to imagine. 3 times he prays this same prayer, and 3 times he comes back to find his best friends asleep. He is completely and utterly alone in his struggle. So why is this moment so important? Because it gives every single one of us permission to be honest. If Jesus, the perfect Son of God, wrestled with the path set before him, why on earth would we think we're supposed to be exempt from struggle? His prayer wasn't a sign of weak faith. It was a masterclass in what authentic faith looks like. He took his raw, unfiltered anguish straight to the Father. He didn't hide his fear. He didn't put on a brave face. He spoke the deepest desire of his human heart. Please, if there is any other way. But then, he follows it with the phrase that changes everything. Yet, not as I will, but as you will. That is the core of real faith. It isn't the absence of fear or struggle. It's trusting God's plan even when you can't see the full picture, and even when it hurts. It's choosing to obey right in the middle of the battle. Jesus' anguish wasn't a rejection of his mission. It was proof of his humanity. It's what makes his sacrifice not just a divine transaction, but an act of profound, personal, and agonizing love. And you know, this pattern of wrestling with God isn't some one-off event. The Bible is filled with heroes of the faith who had massive moments of struggle. Abraham, the father of faith, literally laughed when God said he'd have a son in his old age. His faith didn't grow because he had no questions, but because he kept showing up and talking to God anyway. And then you've got Thomas, who got the unfortunate nickname Doubting Thomas. He flat out said he wouldn't believe Jesus was resurrected unless he could touch the wounds himself. And what did Jesus do? He didn't shame him. He met him right in his doubt. He offered Thomas the very proof he had asked for, which led to one of the most powerful declarations in the whole Bible. My Lord and my God. Even John the Baptist, sitting in a prison cell, sent his followers to ask Jesus, "Are you really the one, or should we expect someone else?" All these beautiful stories prove that God isn't looking for perfect, struggle-free followers. He actually invites our honest, messy questions. What does your own journey with struggle look like? I really want to encourage you to break the silence. Drop a thought in the comments below, because your story might be exactly what someone else needs to read to know that they're not the only one. And if this conversation is helpful, be sure to subscribe for more content that dives into real, tough questions of faith. The Garden of Gethsemane teaches us that faith isn't measured by a lack of struggle, but by our choices to trust God right through it. Jesus didn't just die for you. He wrestled for you. He knows what it feels like to be overwhelmed, to be alone, to stare into the darkness and ask, is there another way? Your struggles don't disqualify you from the game. Think of them as an invitation to a more honest and resilient faith. Just like Jesus, we can bring our biggest fears to God, and in that place of total vulnerability, find the strength to say, not my will, but yours be done. And that, right there, changes everything. The grace of the Lord Jesus Christ be with your spirit.